Welcome to Feel Safe in Your Body. I'm Victor Goenka. My guest today is a somatic educator, someone who teaches people to come back into their own bodies. And what he's after, in his own words, is peace and contentment. Not as a destination he's planted a flag on, but as something he's still moving toward. He wants to talk about awareness, which for a nervous system is where everything starts. You can settle a state you can't feel. You can't change what you can't notice. And today we get into what awareness actually is in the body and where it took him. One arc, like always, where he started, what wired him, what turned it, and what safety feels like now. Let's go. Welcome, Derek.
Thank you very much. Yeah, wow. There's such a circularity to it in my experience, meaning, as I was sort of saying, I came at this very much through the body. And I guess I've always been a head-based person. I'm a 6 on the Enneagram. I don't know if you're familiar with that context, but point being, I studied philosophy in school. I was always interested in philosophy, but I became very interested in embodied philosophy. And that led me to martial arts and the Chinese tradition, where they've got this beautiful interweaving of philosophy, medicine, movement. It's all part and parcel. So I really went deep into all that. And in my attempt to understand Chinese martial art, I studied a lot of forms of movement and body work. So I'm a somatic educator in the tradition of Thomas Hanna. I've studied gyrokinesis, gyrotonic, and I've had teacher trainings and all these postural therapy, lots of different ways of working with the body. And in a sense, when I was younger, I really had a sense that if you could just get the body organized and aligned enough, that the mental state would follow. And I guess I found out through the course of my own life that wasn't necessarily the case, meaning I had achieved a level of physical skill and capacity that I had set out to, but I still had some suffering going on. There was still some depression. There was still some just difficult times in my late 40s. And that led me back to my original love of philosophy and really looking at the nature of mind and reality, but doing it from a much different place due to life experience and all these other things that I had studied and practiced. And so I find myself now in an interesting space, because in the psychology world, everybody's all about the body now. And I'm much more interested in thinking and thoughts. And, we live in the feeling of our thinking. And so a lot of people now are saying, oh, you just got to work the body. And, and clearly there was one of the issues with the Western tradition is there was a schism, right? We separated mind and body, when fact is they're not separate. So there's truth to the idea that we need to include the body, and the body has a lot of information that we need to really get where we're trying to go. At the same time, you can't get away from the idea that body's a conceptual designation. It's an idea we have about something. And so in my own experience, it wasn't until I really looked into the nature of reality and seeing who had the problem that things really began to fall away, and that there was much more space in the body. And in a sense, one of the surprising things for me was the most profound degree of relaxation comes through correct understanding. And so, I've had times in my life where I was training 8-10 hours a day, doing a lot of meditation and yada, yada. But a lot of my deeper skills came out after I did this, what I would call more mental work, but it's more inquiry. It's looking into the nature of reality. How do we know what we know? And what do we think we know? And why do we think we know that? And when we
Would you be a big supporter of the notion that our thoughts do create our reality?
Yeah. But at the same time, see, this is where all this stuff gets really hard to talk about, is because it's both. It's paradox. It's not so much our thoughts create our reality as what we believe about something is how we experience it. So in that sense, yes, Meaning, if I have let's say if I have a dislike towards something, that shows how I'm seeing it, how I'm reading it in the moment. And because of the context of that, my body believes my thinking, and it creates a loop. I've also done a lot of hypnotic work. And so a lot of people think hypnosis is about going into a trance. I think it's the opposite. It's about realizing everybody's already in a trance. They're in the trance of their personal thinking. And the point is to get out of that. So manifesting and all this kind of stuff, I think, is nonsense, right? I think it's all a little bit Pollyannish, and it's, the problem with spirituality in the modern world is it's been so co-opted by capitalism, and everybody's now manifesting and trying to be fabulous, and oh, it's your bad thinking if you don't have a Mercedes or whatever. And I think that's both silly and misses the point. At the same time, I would say we don't experience the world, we experience our thoughts about the world. So for me, like Heraclitus was a profound ancient Greek philosopher, and he has three basic tenets that I hold on to. And one of them, I'll just say because it's this, is that man is not affected by the things of this world, he's affected by his thoughts about the things of this world. And I think
And
that's profound.
the body becomes the vehicle to experience those thoughts.
Well, so when it comes to the body, we have to release it. We have to let go of tension, period. It's the holding on of excess tension in the body that makes it inefficient and causes it to be problematic. Excess tension in the body leads to extraneous thinking in the mind. So they're related. They're both contractions. We tighten our body, and we tend to tighten our mind when we go into a lot of thinking. Brain, if you want to bring it back to a tangible. But so what I like to say, or my little logo, is you have to release the body because you need somewhere to be, right? There's a profound degree of softening of the body that allows one to be present. If the body's uncomfortable, it's difficult to be present. It's like if you can't sit for an hour comfortably, it's hard to go into a deep meditation. It's just a requirement. It's like martial art. If you don't have a requisite degree of strength, you're not going to get anywhere. So there is if the body is tight and uncomfortable, the mind will be tight and uncomfortable, and somebody will be lost in mind. My experience is that the more we can be grounded, present in the body, relaxed, open, vulnerable, which is the opposite of tightening up, the more easily we can notice the movement of mind, which is really us talking to ourselves.
And how does that happen? Does that happen through exercise? That does happen through fluid movement? And then how do you build that bridge back to the unity of the body and the mind, since it's so separated today?
So exercise allows us to feel our body, at least the way I think of it and teach it, right? The more we direct, because when you want to move, you have an intention to move, you're directing the body, you encounter the tension you're holding on to through your exercise practice. And that allows you to let go of that tension. So there's like a constant wearing away or softening that goes on. It's a point, the physical gets to where it can get, and then it becomes more about perceptual. So a little thing that I think is very useful is the nervous system controls the muscular system. The nervous system is influenced by our perception of reality. So if you want to really relax, you learn to see the world as it is, which is free from your thoughts about how scary or whatever you may be thinking about it. You see, it's our body believes our thinking. And so if we have reality, or we hold the world in a certain way that's threatening or fearful or whatever, it could be driven by a lot of different things, that urgency, that feeling creates a tension in the system. And so part of it is really recognizing, but for my thinking, everything is fine. And when we get into the body, so one of the biggest things we develop in martial art is feeling awareness. The felt sense, you hear it referred to now since Peter Levine's work. But we used to call it feeling awareness back in the day. And that's your ability to move your body with skill. The more clearly you can feel it, the more clearly you can direct it. It's like feeling is healing. If you can't feel it, you're not going to be able to heal it. To feel it is to go into it. And so the first thing is we have to turn our attention around. We get so drawn outside of ourselves. We have to begin to bring our attention back to the body. As we do this, we go into the body. And the deeper we go into the body, the more the body falls away, which is a paradox. The more embodied we are, the less we think about our body.
And then when it comes to a dangerous situation, like let's say a fight, and someone is attacking you or someone is coming at you with a knife, what is that first principle that actually reacts or protects you? Is it the fluidity of the body? Is it the nervous system that reacts first? Is it the mind? Is it all three of them together in sync?
Yeah. So the purpose of our training is so that the nervous system doesn't just react. Part of what we're developing is a neutrality, if you will. And the reason is what I want is clarity of perception. If I can see what's happening, I can react to it accurately. So what gets in the way of that is my thinking. If I imagine, oh, it's scary, or oh, this is dangerous, or oh, he's going to do this, or he's going to do that, I'm just talking to myself. And because I'm talking to myself, I'm not really paying attention. It'd be like going to a movie with somebody who kept talking. It's like, if you want to understand the movie, shut up and watch. Don't try to figure it out. Trying to figure it out is just creating noise that's distracting you from watching what's actually the thing in front of you. So a big part of this is recognizing, and this is the principle, right? What happens with water when it gets really calm and quiet and still? It becomes reflective. So when we get calm and quiet and still, we become reflective. We're mostly water. So it's like the possibility to not get ahead and try to anticipate or fix or figure out leaves us in a better position to be clear on what's happening. And that's what we have to overcome, the habituated response to how we're holding the world. There are some people that they're driving in traffic, they're going to do this reflexively. They don't even know. Fuck you, you're in my life. They're not meaning to. That's just how they deal with that situation. And until they see that that's what they do, they have no chance in putting it down. But once you see how it works, you can begin to inhibit that response. And through the inhibition of it, you starve it out eventually. And then there becomes no need to respond. If the guy's going to press it, you move.
And do you work with various elements when it comes to the body, like wind, fire, earth? Is that something that's part of your alignment, your work?
It is, because one of my main traditions is Jinshin Jitsu. And in Jinshin Jitsu, we're looking at the body through the lens of traditional Oriental medicine. So all diseases are an intermingling of the elements. Water's heavy. If it's not descending, it's problematic. Fire's light. If it's not rising, it's problematic. So elemental awareness, in Jinshin, we call it the depths of the body. The first depth is the stomach and spleen, the superficial skin. The second depth is the lung and large intestine, which is the deep skin. The third depth is the liver and gallbladder, which is the blood. Fourth depth is the kidney and bladder, which is the water element. Blood is often called wood in Chinese, or liver gallbladder is the wood element. And then you have fire, which is heart and small intestine. And so it's baked into it. It's a big part of it. Again, I like to keep things really simple, because my observation over 30 plus years is everybody gets lost in the story. Everybody gets heady about it. It's like, ooh, I've got this new technique, or ooh, there's this magical thing. That's all mind. There's really the fact that the body, when given the proper opportunity, knows how to heal itself. And all we can do is create the conditions for these things to happen. So the more relaxed I am physically, the clearer I am mentally, the more I'm able to rest in my own being without muddying the waters, if you will.
And when did that awareness first actually arrive for you? Like that shift into the first time you genuinely felt what your body was doing instead of just thinking about it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I understood for many years intellectually a lot of this, but it wasn't until I really got into the practice of formal inquiry that I really saw, oh, like it's not an idea, it's an actual what's going to be a clear way to see this? Chuanza says the sage is still, not because he wills it, but because he is unmoved. And to be unmoved is learning to be comfortable in discomfort. And so until I really began to sit with that and vulnerability and other things that are part and parcel of that, that's when it really deepened. And that's when, the answer to every problem is to see who has it. And when you're looking for the one with the problem, you can never find them. This
It's
is,
as if the observer who is observing.
yeah, in other words, this is the oldest story in the world is find yourself, right? But what does that really mean? It's not about go to Europe and backpack across this or become a better version of yourself. And that's what a lot of self-help gets wrong. It's all about becoming a better version. The problem with that is even the best versions are problematic. So what we begin to see is when you look for yourself, you can't find it. Like I was talking earlier about the body being a conceptual designation ultimately. What that means is that the body is a word used to talk about things that are not the body. You could use a car as an example too, meaning if I point and I say, this is my body, you could say, no, that's your chest. This is my body. No, that's your leg. This is my body. No, that's your hand. And none of these things are called body. So we use body as a term in the aggregate to give them a place. But what you begin to see is the self you're looking for doesn't exist. Is it in your body? And if it is, isn't your body different than it was 5 years ago? So what's the part that didn't change? Is it in your thinking? No, because your thinking changes even quicker than your body. And then feelings are the same thing. So it's like when we look for the monad, if you will, if we look for the thing that we can point to, you can never find it. So, but for our thinking, right? There's a great pointer in non-duality, which is what's wrong with right now if you don't think about it.
Well, if you don't think about it, there's nothing wrong with right now.
That's
Right
right.
now just is.
That's right. But for our thinking, everything is fine. And when we see that, Ramana Maharshi said, we have to get free from the tyranny of mind. And I believe that's true. That's been my experience. We have a habit of leaving the body and drifting into thinking about things. And so what we call reality is mostly our thinking about things. What is reality is what's here, what doesn't come and go.
I feel like finding comfort in discomfort resonates with two practices that I did. One of them being the Vipassana meditation and listening to myself and finding that surrender in the body, and at the same time putting the mind on the operation table and dissecting every thought and observing it. And then the second practice, which is very somatic, would be the ice work, the ice baths, is going into a very stressful, uncomfortable environment and then allowing your body to adapt completely, freeing your mind of those thoughts, of those worries, and just observing how the body actually knows how to deal with the situation.
That's right. And the ice bath is a great analogy from the standpoint of what do you have to do? You have to ignore every signal your body's telling you to get the hell out of the cold water. And with this, you have to ignore every thought that's telling you that, well, no, I've got to have this thought. This thought's important. This thought's real. If I don't have this thinking, everything's going to fall apart. It's just a thought. And so what happens is we get lost in our thinking. And so even what you said earlier, for me, gave a little pause, and I see this often with Vipassanas, thinking about thinking isn't what you want to do. You want to recognize thinking as the activity it is and drop it, put it down. And so a lot of the time what happens is we get in a recursion loop mentally because we're thinking about our thinking as if we're going to solve it. But the thing is, go ahead.
The unique part with the Vipassana that I did it one-on-one with a teacher, and he added dance to that. So every day we would have at least an hour or two of dance within the body, within those thoughts, physical movement, not just necessarily sitting just and observing, which I feel is a little bit more towards the direction that you are talking about. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I'd say moving doesn't change the dynamic of it. In other words, movement's always good, especially if you're sitting for long periods. It's a pressure release. But I guess what I'm saying is that, and this is what's tricky about this stuff, is that there's a dawning that happens. And you're never finished because there's always more to see, right? So it's not like anybody gets to be, it's all done. I did it. I've got all the, it's not about that. It's about deepening your view and knowing there's always more to see. But the discipline, right? Inquiry needs to be both rigorously honest, and very open and curious. Because what winds up happening is people don't recognize that they're in their thinking. And so, it's like in therapy, people, yeah, but, it's like, no, as soon as you bring the yeah, but in, it's just another thought, right? It's like a movement away from being in the cold water. What do you do when you don't get to escape to your thinking? Because it's thinking, especially for someone like myself, who's a mental type, that's where I go when I feel I don't have control. Because I feel, okay, I've got control. I'm in my thinking. I can try to understand it. I can figure it out. I can study it. I can, but that's not the point, because you're back in the field of mind. And, the mind can't contemplate what's outside of it, but what's outside of it can contemplate mind. So it's like, I'm not in my body. I'm not my body. My body is in my awareness, and it's just another thing among things.
And those things are essentially endless when it comes to discovery, because there's always more into that awareness.
That's right.
How does awareness actually become change? Like someone notices that their body's doing, and then what? Where's the bridge from seeing to settling?
Great question. I'd say in inhibition, because it's like when we want to change something and it's something that we're doing, the only way to change it is to stop doing it. And the only way to stop doing it is to see yourself doing it. So it's like it's like the nature of mind. When you recognize the structure of the prison or the cage you're in, you can find your way out. But if you don't recognize the structure, there's no way, you're lost in it. And so part of it, and this is where the Enneagram is very useful as a way of learning more about personality fixations. Are you familiar with this at all, the Enneagram?
No, tell me more about that.
It's a tradition that goes back to Pythagoras, and basically it's a way of, you see a lot of it in the Benedictine church and the Jesuits. A lot of the old Catholics used it as well. But basically it's like saying there's nine different types of personality. It's like 9 different kinds of dogs. A poodle's not the same as a Great Dane. They're both dogs, but they're very different. So there's 3 head types: an introverted, an extroverted, and a neutral. There's 3 heart types: introverted, extroverted, and neutral. And there's 3 gut types or body types: introverted, extroverted, and neutral. And so depending on where you are there, your movement will be up into the head, thinking, or it will be from the heart, trying to win somebody over. This is what those people do. Or from the belly, where you're controlling, you're working against. And that's fear is head. Shame, I guess you'd say shame is more heart, and stomach is anger, or the gut is anger. But the point is, if you study into the Enneagram, it gives you a way to begin to see how your fixated patterns of thinking, your survival strategy to feel safe and move through the world when you're younger works. And then you can see, oh yeah, I do that every time that happens, so I'm just not going to do that. The trick is, what do you do instead? And that's where you're sitting in the cold water of, I don't know what to do, but I know what not to do. And so I'm just going to try to find peace in not having that cigarette, whatever thing you're trying to avoid doing. I'm going to sit with the discomfort of not letting myself escape through my normal escape path. Does that make sense?
And how do you, yeah, how do you know, in your body that you're safe right now?
Well, I'd say you don't, because you're not. There's no such thing as being safe. You know what I mean? We just don't get that. The fundamental truth is we live in not knowing. But what does happen is when you realize you're not your body, the losing of the body is not such a concern. It happens. This body came out of nowhere, it'll disappear back to nowhere, just like thoughts. They come out of nowhere, they're made of nothing, and they return to nowhere.
And what
Go ahead.
and what's the difference between the peace you have now and the peace that you have imagined would be as this work progressed in your life?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's unshakable. It's not, you know, before there were more ideas, and if I encountered certain types of stress, I'd still would get all buggered up about it and lose myself to it, even though I could watch it happening and understand that I shouldn't be doing that, but I didn't have control to not have that reaction or response. Now, those things might show up for a moment, but they're put down very quickly. So there's no growth to it. There's no, like I can see it right away, and I can be non-reactive because there's like a transparency. If you're doing this, I don't want it, or I want it, you're in this push-pull kind of thing. When you're neutral about it, when there isn't a great need to defend or a great need to have gain, it's just becomes softer. It's like the body, it's the same condition. Relaxation opens, 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 always. It's not I did it, I relaxed. It's constant in the moment. I'm doing it now.
And someone listening who lives mostly entirely in their head and has no real contact with what their body is doing, what's the first move towards awareness? Something generally doable. Where can one start?
That's a good question. Yeah, and that's where it gets tricky, right? Everybody's got different experience they bring to it. For me, again, I think the first thing is to learn to relax. Most people aren't physically relaxed in their body, and you can see it in how they move. You can feel it in the tissue. That tension is something you're holding on to. Tension's an activity, something you're doing. And when you get that, it becomes possible to stop doing it.
How does one begin to relax?
In a sense, well, relaxing is returning to a state of lax. It's the opposite of contracting. So and this is where, if you're contracting all the time, and this is ironic, you can't just have somebody relax out of that. A lot of the times they need to contract even more because they don't realize how tight they are until you make them so tight that they say, oh, I gotta relax. So it's like in the Tao Te Ching, it says, if you would make a crooked man straight, you must first make him more crooked. Because if he doesn't see it, he won't make the adjustment. I used to do a lot of body work. So a lot of people like deep tissue and Rolfing and all this stuff. But if you go get Rolfed and you get all opened up and your view of the world is that it's a scary place, you're going to tighten right back up because your nervous system is going to be sending those same story signals to your muscular system. You can't separate the two. And so the best place to begin is telling the truth, admitting where there's tension. I studied Tai Chi most of my life. Tai Chi asks for a profound degree of relaxation. It's not just relaxed, it's a profound degree of relaxation that is the single skill almost, and you're constantly cultivating it. So it's like, and when you play with people, you can get a sense of where somebody is in their relaxation by how their body moves and feels. And so there's an old expression, which is, it's not what you do, but how you do it. And then ultimately, it's not how you do it, but who does it. If somebody's, in Chinese, the word we use is song. It means to release. This is to song. To let it go, to release. Whoever is more song will win, will be able to control the other person. And that's the goal. That's what you're looking for, or meaning the song itself, not the control. It's a quality of being that is embodied and is effortless once it's developed. It's not a thing you do, it's how you are. So, again, the trick with a lot of these things is people come to a lot of practices with a lot of needs. So like somebody may want to learn Tai Chi, but they're just not really very strong in their body. So then they can't even begin the journey of song because they have to get a baseline physicality to release away from. In the old days, people worked outside all the time. They were already strong. They were already reasonably fit. So, it does get tricky. Somatics, for instance, and Hanna somatics. Thomas Hanna was a super bright guy. He was a philosophy professor, tenured, and because he was tenured, he went and he studied neurology or the nervous system at the university level, and came up with his whole thing. And the whole point of it is learning to feel the body so you can inhabit the body. You have to put your awareness in your body like you put your arm into the sleeve of a coat. There's a filling that happens. And when that filling happens, the mind is everywhere in the body. There's no movement as a function of intention, and it's the direction is clear. There isn't tension in the way of it. There isn't the inefficiencies that have to get worked out as a result of the habituated tension and all the rest of it. So there's a natural deepening and softening that happens. But the beginning is recognizing, and I guess this is the point I was making. In Tai Chi, if you're not saying to yourself, yeah, I'm tight, I'm tight, I'm tight, if you're not actively trying to release and relax all the time, you'll never get there because it's a constant thing.
And for the person who's afraid to actually feel what's in their body, like it'll be too much. So
Yeah.
I guess they're in the mind. What's the message to them? What would you like them to know?
That the story you have about your body is just another story. It's not real. You're making it up. You've heard it somewhere. It's not to deny pain or anything like that. It's just pain is an interpretation of sensation, always. And so we can learn to be with our discomfort, like getting in the cold water, by learning to not be so reactive to it. And so if there's a lot of fear about being in the body, then you have a journey ahead of you, and it has to begin with becoming comfortable and familiar with your body. So like somatics, which is a very gentle way of learning to move and sense the body, Jin Shinjitsu, all these are technologies that give us more capacity to settle into the body and to find our way into it. It's interesting when you really begin to look down and you see how everything is a function of mind and thought, meaning even the sensations we have, we only know through our thoughts about them. Painful, not painful, right? The Buddha said things are either pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And when we can learn to be with that, we can notice how the mind gets carried away and starts telling us a scary story, or this pain, what does this mean? I got cancer, or this is what happens. We feel something and then we pathologize it, or we tell a story about it. And if we're telling ourselves scary stories, we need to see that and stop doing it.
Where can people find you and your work?
Social media, Instagram. I've got a website where I've got some courses. I do a lot of Indian club swinging and teach a traditional Chinese martial art called Xingyi Liu He Chen, which basically means integrating the heart and mind through the 6 harmonies. Yeah, I've got some podcasts that I've been on with the embodiment. I can't think of the name of it. But yeah, so there's some stuff out there. And a lot of what I do now is one-on-one work with people, coaching both movement and teaching Jinshin Jitsu so people can work on themselves, but then really looking into this nature of mind, because without telling the truth and the willingness to meet the truth, in a sense, it's really hard to go too deep into anything. And so a lot of this is seeing, yeah, how am I holding things? Do I, the first question would be, do you believe you're your body? Like that is, I think original sin is that mistaken identity of being the body. If we think we're our body and our biography, we're trapped. There's not much you can do. You know where it's going. Everything you love is going to be taken from you and you're going to die. It's
The body is a vehicle for exploration of the physical. Is that a good way to put it, or is that too far?
Yeah, to me that's too far. I mean, the body is like having a dog. I love dogs. I always have dogs. It's my responsibility to exercise and feed and love that dog, but I'm not the dog. I've got to take care of this. I got to love it. I got to, or you could say like a car, if it's beaten up and broken down, it's not much fun to get around in, but you're not your car, So it's like the body, and even to experience the physical, even that's a distinction in mind, right? I mean, it's what most of us experience is our thinking about things, not the things themselves. And so all of this is about reclaiming the first person perspective, our direct experience, not what you think about the world, but what's actually here. If I were telling you that I had this big problem right now, the reality is we're just 2 guys sitting talking. There's no big problem other than in my thinking. And that's not to say I'll never have a problem that I have to figure out, but I'll figure it out when it's time to figure it out. I don't need to be thinking about it now because it's not here.
And is that deeply connected with the mind always living in the past or the future? And
Yes.
then when we're able to observe it in the present or bring it into the present, then we realize that there is nothingness.
Yeah, emptiness, nothingness. That's right. Yeah, look, the mind falls away when we're present. There's no mind. This is what they call it in Zen. The whole point of meditation is to not touch your thinking. Thoughts will arise, but you refuse delivery. I don't have to do anything with it.
And then who is the observer of that thinking?
That's just a thought. I don't know. I don't need
Like
to
the
know.
clouds, like the clouds in the sky, right? They
Yeah.
just pass.
Yeah, the one who wants to know who the observer of the thinking is the one doing the thinking. It's just more thought. It's ego, but ego gets so confused by the way people use it. But ego is just another word for mind. It's like, for me, a real profound moment was when I realized that thinking is just you talking to yourself. And you don't have to believe everything you think, and you don't know what you're talking about, because nobody does. Nobody knows what's next. Nobody knows, like, the mystery of life isn't going to be solved. It's not intended to be. Are you there, or did we freeze? Oh no, there you are.
All right. Well, thank you for bringing such presence to this conversation. I think it was very profound and deep, a lot to grasp and digest, and at the same time just observe.
Yeah, the thing is we want it to be simple. As soon as we make it complex, we create confusion, and that's all happening in the mind by the mind. So what happens when you go beyond mind?
And if your ego or mind is loud and your body never quite settles, that's the work I do inside BreathX Collective and one-on-one with a few people. I will link Derek's notes, his website, or his socials, and I will also link my community in the show notes. This was Feel Safe in Your Body. I'm Victor Goenka. Thanks for listening. And thanks for being here. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.